Welcome to Startup Chronicles, where we dive deep into the journeys of tech entrepreneurs, uncovering the stories behind today's most innovative startups. Join us as we explore their challenges, triumphs, and future goals. Let's get started. Welcome to the first episode of Startup Chronicles. I'm your host, Nolan Hovis. This is my co-host,
John Pierce.
And we have the pleasure of having John Bledsoe, founder of Co-Angler, as our first guest. So, John, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Again, I'm John Bledsoe. I'm the founder of Co-Angler. Born and raised right here in the Missouri Ozarks, and love to fish and love to be outdoors. And that's kind of what naturally led me to the place I am now, starting a tech company in the outdoor rec space, focused on connecting people to go fish together. And so, we're just getting started. It launched in November of last year and seeing some pretty consistent user growth so far, but really happy to be here and share more about my story and kind of what's been happening and what we got in the works too. So thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem at all. So we live in southern Missouri, very rural area. So fishing is something that I think most everybody you've run into here has at least done a few times in their life. How long have you been fishing?
Yeah, well, let's see. I'm 38 years old, and I honestly don't even remember the first time I went fishing because I was so young. So I grew up in a fishing family. My parents are just ate up with it, and so my first fishing stories were ones that were told about me before I can even remember. So my dad taking me to the local farm pond in his fancy fishing vest with a million different pockets on it. And I'm like an annoying, handsy toddler that's trying to pick in all the lures and find all the flashy stuff that I can, get out and play with. And so, but yeah, some of my earliest memories are definitely around that, 4 or 5 years old, fishing and, really trying to do it my way too. I was a pretty stubborn fisherman. I probably still am pretty stubborn in terms of my fishing habits, but really, I've got lots of stories from that, 5, 6, 7, 8, time period. But yeah, it's just something that's kind of always been a part of my life. Especially growing up in the Ozarks here, we're blessed with, some of the most beautiful streams and lakes in the country, and it's hard to, drive 30 minutes in one direction and not drive over a fishable waterway. So it's something that, I haven't taken for granted and I've really enjoyed being able to, take the time to, immerse myself in it. And so, yeah, it's a big passion of mine that I really am excited to be able to share with more people, give people a new, avenue to get out in the outdoors as well as connect and learn and, have some good experiences with others. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's probably a little bit long-winded answer, but
No, it's okay. Yeah. We live in such a beautiful area. Southern Missouri just has some awesome, like you said, awesome rivers, awesome lakes, awesome hiking trails. It's so beautiful and so rural. So how do you go from being in such a rural area and loving fishing and hunting every day to starting a tech company? How do we get there?
yeah, well, it wasn't in the plans by any means. It was something that uh, really found me and pulled me in. So I wasn't necessarily searching for it. And but like I said, I really love the outdoors and fishing, and I actually went a different path. Early on, I went to high school and then I went to college, and after I graduated college, I got a job in the industry, and I worked as a chemist doing research and development, and really enjoyed that work. It was challenging. I had to use my brain, every single day in new ways and challenge myself. And uh, I was also surrounded by a lot of incredibly smart people. And so, and as I found, you get into those rhythms of, that 9 to 5 day to day, you're you got your week of vacation coming up, and I eventually found myself making a little bit more of a commitment to, getting in the outdoors with regards to how much money I'm going to spend. I actually, I started doing a lot of kayak fishing. So before kayaks, it was, fishing from the bank. I did a lot of fly fishing and, fishing from other people's boats and things of that nature. But so it's about 3 years ago, I bought a boat. And so I found myself, fishing a lot more. I really expanded my fishing proximity, was able to, you know, get to waters that were out of reach. And so I found myself, fishing a lot. And one thing that I found was sometimes it was really hard to find somebody to go fishing. There's kind of a running joke that's like, oh, if you got a boat, you have no problem finding friends. But you know, a lot of people would be surprised to find that it's actually quite the opposite for a lot of us, and it's actually hard to find people to, whether their schedules allow or your inner circle. A lot of times they have families or other commitments, and so they're not able to get out on the water with you. And so I did find myself fishing quite a bit by myself, and I was actually out on the water one day, and unfortunately, I'd had a pretty serious relationship that had just ended, and so I was feeling, you know, there was an additional element of loneliness that was kind
Hmm.
of added to that. But I, was fishing on the water by myself, and it was a beautiful day, and I was on my home lake, and I happened to look at my extra seat on my boat, and I got to thinking, why didn't I bring somebody with me? Why am I out here, by myself? And then that was when the light bulb went off, and I thought, why isn't there something dedicated to that to connect people to go fishing together? And it was a simultaneous thought of, you know, a light bulb idea, like this is a great idea, and then the curiosity as to why this doesn't exist yet. And so that's what really kind of drove me to kind of start pursuing this path. And uh, shortly after, I came up with the name co-angler, which is a pretty well known term, especially in the tournament fishing community. Uh, but I got on the internet and searched for the domain name, and it was available for $13. And so I bought coangler.com, and really what I envisioned was, a social network dedicated to fishing, where anglers can, choose to offer or request fishing trips, be able to share costs with other anglers to make it more affordable. Uh, you almost, have elements of like mentorship if you want to take somebody out that maybe has less experience or maybe a different type of skill set than you, an opportunity to learn, improve your own skills, and as well as, get out there and have fun fishing with somebody. And that's the core value of what it is that I'm trying to provide. It's a people focused, people centered mission that I'm on. And I found firsthand that, fishing is better with a friend or with somebody else, in the boat, because I personally, another problem I've experienced fishing by myself is, you get out there and you catch a good one, you catch a
Hmm.
big one, and
Yep.
man, it's hard to hold up the fish and the selfie, and you can't even fit it, and then it doesn't do it justice. And but
Hmm.
boy, when you got another person in the boat with you, you can hold the fish out and make it look huge, right in front of the camera. And so there's a lot of benefits simply to having somebody else on the boat with you. To even take it further, the safety aspect of fishing can be dangerous. You're out on a body of water throwing sharp objects around. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So, if you have a buddy in the boat or somebody that could call for help if needed, or pull you back in the water if you fall in, or even things like helping you launch your boat or park the truck, you know, just having an extra set of hands is such a kind of a reassuring thing. And it's nice to see that in some different use cases of the app where we've actually had a lot of feedback from people that have signed up saying, I love fishing. I want to go more, but my wife's at home and she worries about me, when I'm by
Hmm.
myself.
Yeah.
So, especially as anglers get older, when they get into their 60s and 70s and even 80s, they take a lot more risk, going out there on maybe cold weather days and or high winds. And, if they're by themselves, you really have to make sure that you're staying safe. But simply having a co-angler in the boat with you is a safeguard that I think really a lot of people will learn to
Hmm.
appreciate as we start spreading and getting the word out more.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is the best way to start a tech company is to break up with your girlfriend and go fishing. But why
You
don't
know,
you
it would
go ahead?
it would actually be. I was gonna say it'd actually be the opposite. So you get a girlfriend, and then she breaks up with you.
Gotta get your heart broken, and then you can start a
Yeah,
tech company. Why
yeah,
don't you give
yeah.
us the basic gist of your app? Because we've been talking about it a little bit, and for those that are listening, they
hmm
might not know. So why don't you give us the basic gist of your app so that going forward they can kind of have a little bit more context?
Yeah, so it's a web application, so you access it through coangler.com. We on our landing page you can learn quite a bit about what the app does, how it's intended to function, how to use it. But it's a simple onboarding process. So navigate into coangler.com, click on sign up. It takes you through an onboarding process where you enter your first name, last name, create a username, enter your birth date, and then use your email to verify, your email address, and then create a password, and you are logged on. So after that account creation, you now are inside the app that is only accessible to people who have accounts created. And from that point, you can customize your own profile. So you can upload a profile picture, cover photo. You have an about section where you can describe, your fishing preferences, kind of the style of fishing that you like to do. And then from that point forward, there's really two main core features that we have on the app right now from a content generation standpoint. So users have the ability to offer a trip, which is really kind of a three-step process where you click on the offer a trip button, and then you're taken to a page that uh, shows you a Google Maps display where you can drop a pin on whether it's the water body you want to go to, or the boat dock that you plan on launching, or your river access point, or even a farm pond if that's where you want to go. And and then you pick your day, you pick your time, your duration, your target species, your technique. Uh, you establish your shared costs, which is how much you expect whoever joins your trip to pay. Those are costs meant to share expenses. It's hard to go fishing these days and it not cost $100.
Yeah.
Between driving your truck and your boat and some of the bait and tackle and parking, and so it's definitely not getting any cheaper. And so that shared cost is meant to really help offset those expenses that anglers face, and especially the habitual enthusiastic fishermen and women out there. That fish regularly. Those costs really add up over time. And so from that, you go to your next page where you've got description fields where you can go into a more detailed description of, hey, I'm going to go bass fishing. I'm going to throw light tackle on, uh, you know, wind-blown points, or I'm going to, drag jigs around boat docks, and then you have a boat description where you can, describe your boat, maybe some of the electronics or the size of the motor, the year, color, and that way people, can get an
Mhm.
idea of what kind of vessel they're going to be getting in. And then on the third part of the offer a trip is basically the photo upload. So, upload a nice photo of you holding a fish, a photo of your boat, kind of give somebody an idea of, what you look like and what you're fishing out of, and, try and help pique their interest. And then from that, you publish it, and it goes to the global feed that everybody gets to see when they log in. and they scroll through and they can see that trip that's essentially a card or similar to like a Facebook post that shows those photos that you uploaded, as well as some of those quick high level details about the location, the target species, the shared cost, the day. And then other co-anglers on the site can then choose to send a request to join that trip, where then the person that offers it basically receives a request, and their notification says, so and so wants to join your trip. And then you navigate to your control panel, where you have the option to, you know, look at their profile, see if you think that this is somebody that you're willing to take out, and then choose to approve or deny, and then notifications get sent back, and then from that point, contact information is shared through email, and then you're able to communicate with them, directly to help, if there's any final details. We also have a commenting feature on a trip too, so if you see a
Yeah, I
trip that you
noticed
may
that.
want to join, but maybe you have some additional, if you see you want some maybe additional information about the trip, do I need to bring lunch or rain gear, or how many rods should I bring, things of that nature, so you can, comment on that trip so that the trip host can, answer those, so you can have kind of a little bit more confidence before you hit that request to join. And and then the other core feature on the app, which is kind of the mirror of the offer a trip, which is the general trip request. So this offers people that maybe don't have the resources, maybe they don't have the boat or even the experience, but they want to go fishing. They're not sure really how to begin, but they have some general preferences that they want. So they're able to, click on request a trip, and then they go through a two-stage uh, process where they also have the Google Maps API at their fingertips, where they can pick a body of water or a location that they're generally wanting to go fish. It's usually close to their area or where they're going to be, and then from that point forward, they have a short description field on what it is that they're looking to do. It's usually a little bit more simplified in terms of the process, but and then they have also that shared cost contribution. So this is where they can say, hey, I know fishing's expensive. I know I don't have a boat. I haven't spent that money, but I'm willing to pay $75 towards, gas and expenses, if you're willing to provide me with the trip. And then after that's published, that goes to the same feed, the same global feed that everybody else sees. So now you have a mixture of both offered and requested trips. And so for a request a trip, you're able to, you know, you can provide that trip. So then you send a request on the other end saying, hey, I'm willing to provide this trip to you. And then the owner of that trip request ends up uh, navigating to their control panel, just like on the offer a trip process, and being able to navigate to their uh, requested angler's profile and choose whether or not to approve that. And then from that point, contact info is shared again, and they go offline, and excuse me, and then they're able to execute that trip.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two main features, and we started with first with the offer a trip, and then ran that for a little while, and then found that the request a trip feature was the thing that, based on just user feedback and uh, you know listening to people on the app, was really how we really made that decision that was going to be the
Mhm.
next major feature to build into the app. So
Yeah. Yeah, so an interesting thing about an app called CoAngler is you might think that it's for avid fishers, and it is, right? It is for avid fishers, but from the breakdown you just gave us, it seems like it pretty much covers all bases from the most professional fisherman to the very beginning stages of being a fisherman. Being able to request a trip, I think,
yep.
is great, because in my fishing experience, growing up, I was kind of late high school, early college. I've fished a lot, uh, and being that young, I don't have a boat. I never had a boat. I did a lot of bank fishing like you did at the beginning,
Hmm.
and farm pond fishing. Me and my friends, we'd go hop farm ponds of the older fellas that own farms around us. You know, they all give us permission to go fish their ponds, and that's always the best because you just know that those have been stocked for a long time, so you catch those big bass, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but but co-angler covers all those bases from beginner to the best fishermen in the world. They can all use this app. And that's what I think is pretty interesting because when we were navigating through your app, I have an account. I haven't used it. I've used it for research purposes so far. But but I noticed that you could almost tell like there's already such a mixture of super experienced fishermen and people that just want to go on a fishing trip. And I really like that because it covers all those bases. And the shared cost feature I think is really, really cool. Being able to kind of split the cost because fishing is expensive. Like I said, I was fishing when I was a lot younger. I didn't really have like a steady job or anything like that. And when I was fishing, most of my money went towards fishing. You know, just about every time I went out, I probably had to buy new bait and tackle. Because like I told you before the recording, I did a lot of bank fishing and I would drag a jig across the bottom. And when you're doing that, you're going to get snagged and you're going to get stuck. And so I would lose my weighted jigs all the time, and I would lose my pumpkins is what we call them, which is really just a color. I don't even know what the bait is actually called. But we would either do pumpkins or watermelons and stick the jigs inside of them, and we'd lose them all the time. So we'd buy packs on packs of those. But it is expensive, and especially when you get into boat fishing, you got gas to get there, and you got gas to drive your boat around, right? And so it's a lot. So I think that's a good way to kind of segue into how you knew that people would use this. How did you gain interest? How did you gain attention? How did you know from whenever you realized you wanted something like this when you were on the boat and you looked at your seat? How did you figure out that other people would like something like this?
Yeah. Well, just like anything, there was a big assumption that started out, and so there was a process of validating that assumption. It's like, and my assumption was like, I can't believe that this doesn't exist yet. People are already doing this in other ways, Facebook with their groups feature, which, the curse of the Facebook group is alive and real. Like, I don't think people realize that there's so many Facebook groups out there right now, and people are willingly administering those groups free of charge. And you are working for Facebook. You're approving posts. They are basically freelancing you, and you don't even realize it.
Yep.
And so I'm a member of several different fishing groups for fishing reports, and so what I continually would see is people connecting for fishing trips on those groups. And so really what I started doing was a lot of customer research, customer discovery. So I've got an idea for a solution to a problem I've discovered. What is it that I think people actually want? Because I have all these assumptions, but I need to hear them say it and tell me what they want. And so that was a pretty in-depth, long process. I talked to hundreds of anglers, both professional fishing guides, charter boat captains, to your novice. I did customer discovery for, to talk to children that fish as low as 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
And
did you
try to
do
understand their
that
fishing habits, what their preferences were.
Did you do that through the Facebook groups, or do you already have, just in your personal life, a large network of these fishermen?
A little bit of both, but I took full advantage of the Facebook fishing groups because there was no shortage of them, and come to find out, people love talking about fishing. And I could create a post on a Facebook group and say, hey, I'm doing some research on the fishing industry. If anybody would like to help me out. And I would have dozens of people said, yeah, get a hold of me. I'd be happy to help you out. That's one of the most reassuring things I found about the industry that I'm going into, that I went into, was just the people, is the salt of the earth. You know, your outdoorsmen and women. I mean, I'm not experienced with a whole lot of different industries, but I'd say it's one of the most, welcoming and down to earth and, friendly groups of people, because I think fishing's one of those, uh, it's one of those common ground type foundations that people find themselves in, where, they don't necessarily have to talk about social issues or politics. They can,
Mm.
you can talk about fishing and find somebody that could be, completely opposite on so many of those other divisive details. But one of the things that I did very early on, was I tested out uh, my concept without having a product, and so I basically used other tools available to me, which was a Facebook fishing group. It was called Stockton Lake Fishing Report. Had about 17,000 members at the time. This would have been in March of 2021, and I decided I needed to see if this would simply work. And so what I did was I posted on this fishing group. I said, "Hey, I'm going to Stockton Lake this weekend. I'm gonna." I posted a picture of my boat. Said I'm gonna put in at this boat ramp at this time and fish for this amount of time. I'm gonna target this species. If anybody wants to join me, it's gonna cost you this much to come. And I said $40. and uh, and that post was up 1 hour, and I had the first comment in like 5 minutes, and it was a gentleman that got on there and said, "It's like, hey, how about you pay me $40 and I'll teach you how to fish?" And so, it was pretty funny that, they get pretty salty on there too. And but that's social media for you. That's,
Yeah.
somebody that was nowhere near considering going fishing with me, but just felt like making a snarky comment. So to whoever that is out there, thank you for that comment, because I've been using that funny story on your behalf since the beginning. And but the second comment that I got was a gentleman that, uh, we were targeting white bass for this trip. So he got on there and started giving a fishing report. He said, "I think you'll probably do pretty good. The white bass are really moving up into the rivers. So good luck." And I was like, "Well, that's encouraging. Somebody just that wants to talk about fishing, maybe not necessarily go." And then I got another comment shortly after, and it was a gentleman. He was a disabled Marine veteran, and he lived on the other side of the lake, and he used to fish professionally. And he commented and said, "Hey, brother, I'd love to go out there with you. It's like, I've never been on that arm of the lake. Let's go." And so we went offline and started direct messaging each other. And I mean, we were talking about our fishing plans, to sharing fish pictures and boat pictures, and but at the same time, we're kind of vetting each other. So is this somebody that, I met you off the internet? Is this somebody that I really want to go fishing with? And I had no qualms whatsoever, and we ended up going fishing. He met me down at the ramp. We shook hands and got on the boat, and away we went. And I tell you what, we couldn't have had more fun. We ended up in about 4 hours. We probably caught 60 fish and 3 or 4 different species of bass, and we ended up just having. I mean, it couldn't have been a better trip. And we had so much fun. And on the way back to the boat ramp, he paid me that gas money. And what really happened on that day is, yeah, I validated a concept. I proved that, it could work. But also I made a friend. I'm still friends with this guy. He's supported the app. He's supported us on social media. I just shipped him a free co-angler hat a week ago. Uh, and so that was even more so than, okay, we went on a fishing trip, we caught fish, that's great. But like, the real value and the real gift that the co-angler can potentially give, its users, is the ability to find other people out there to just go have fun in the outdoors with, and create a lifelong friendship, because those are the truly meaningful things in life that give us purpose and value. And
Mhm.
so it really reminded me that, uh, I'm not starting a fishing company. Like, yeah, fishing is the avenue that we use to connect people, but it is a people company. And so, And that's really what I'm focused on, is just allowing people to connect and find ways to enjoy the outdoors together, to support each other, and build long lasting friendships.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that is really cool.
Hmm.
60 fish in 4 hours. That's a hoot right there. Like, that's absolutely fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah,
Um,
we were catching white bass and smallmouth and largemouth, and we
yeah,
even caught a perch, I think, too.
there
So,
you go.
but
Or a
yeah,
giant
it was a lot
crankbait
of
or
fun.
something like that.
Yeah, we were throwing little crappie style jigs, but
Yeah. Nice.
the white bass run in the Ozarks is like,
Mhm.
it's one of the best. I mean, hundreds of thousands of fish come from the lake and run up the rivers to spawn, and so
Mhm.
it's one of the most fun times of year in March and April when they really start running, because you can just catch them one after another, and they're really a good table fare as well.
Yeah. Do you ever do like do you ever do a catch and fry on the boat?
Not on the boat. I never fry 'em. I mean, I've had some float trips that I've done where
Mhm.
we've went trout fishing, and we'll fry them right there on the gravel bar.
Yep.
Take them right out, clean them, fry them up, and uh, but I definitely do a lot of fish fries. I enjoy eating walleye and crappie and catfish. Catfishing is kind of one of my passions too. I also, my parents are huge cat fishermen. But I have a technique that one of my best friends showed me years ago that I've kind of turned it into an annual thing. It's called limb lining. It's an alternative method used to catch catfish, but essentially what you do is you get, your fishing line, usually a braided nylon string, 80-pound test or higher, and you tie that to a tree limb hanging over the water. And then you put a little barrel swivel on there and down to your hook, and then you bait it with your bait of choice. I like using, live bait that I catch out of a cast net, and you literally let the tree limb become your fishing rod and fight that fish
Huh.
for you. And you set several of those lines out, and uh, you rebait them, at whatever
Mhm.
cadence you want, whether it's every hour or 2 hours or 24 hours. And we actually just had a limb lining trip this past Wednesday and caught several channel catfish, and we've already had some fried up. And I like making a homemade tartar sauce that is absolutely incredible. So that's kind of my go-to jam right there. Catch a mess of fish and make my
Yeah.
homemade tartar sauce, and break bread with friends and family. So
Next thing you know, we're gonna have the Coangler tartar sauce by John Bledsoe for sale.
I've considered how I could mass produce this. I can't even tell you the secret ingredient, so I can't give it
That's
away
okay.
yet. So
That's okay. It's gonna be on the label.
yeah,
But yeah.
it will
Uh,
be.
but yeah. So you are an anomaly in the tech startup uh, world, and what I mean by that is you are a founder that also knows how to code. So you've been through a software development boot camp uh, and
Hmm.
played a part in developing your own application, which is actually pretty seldom when it comes to founders. Um, so why don't we dive into that a little bit? What led you?
Yep.
Was it this idea that led you to wanting to learn how to code, or did you have other interests from your previous career as a chemist and being around people that constantly push the limits, your limits intellectually?
Yeah. No, it was the app. It was the idea for the app that basically drew me to, and it was out of necessity, is what it was. It was, uh, you know, when I started with this idea, I knew it had to be a tech solution. I knew that software was a solution. It just boggled my mind that it hadn't already been invented, and people were finding ways to use currently developed software like Facebook phishing groups and Instagram and whatever else and Reddit to find people to connect for fishing trips. But starting the whole bootstrap, I'm going to learn how to code and build this myself, that was not my first initial thought. I was scared to death of going that route. I thought, coders and developers are geniuses. Yeah, I think I'm smart some days, but I don't think I'm that smart, because I've had a computer science class in college, and that was it. And we were making the background turn blue using HTML.
Mm-hmm.
And but I started out kind of vetting companies. So I thought, I'm gonna have to pay somebody to build this. And so I started getting quotes and from local companies, you know, domestic companies, foreign companies, both small and large. And I got quotes everywhere from $40,000 to build out an MVP all the way up to $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
And to say I got sticker shock would be an understatement. And I found a company that was local that I really thought, okay, this might be a good opportunity. It was going to be about 40 grand. Uh, and I decided to go a different pathway because I became aware of a program called Code Labs that was going to be offered in my area. And, at first I thought, no, I can't do that. Like, I had other people, consulting me saying, oh, it's going to be way too hard to code. You're going to have to spend 10,000 hours before you even know what to do. And I'm stubborn. I took a lot of that advice with a grain of salt and, was confident in my own abilities because regardless of my aptitude to be able to learn how to code, I knew that the one thing I had in my back pocket was, my determination and my inability to quit. I knew that I would continue. Once I start something, I always, try and see it through and keep showing up. So, but I had another light bulb go off, which was, it wasn't a week before applications were due for the Code Labs program. And I got to thinking, I was like, wait a second, if I'm going to build a tech company based on software, I at least need to know from, even if it's just a high level, even if I'm not the one like coding and developing it all, like I need to know how it's done. Because I'm not going to be able to lead and, you know if I'm getting taken advantage of down the road or things of that nature. So I enrolled and was fortunate enough to get in and into this 10-month long program that was scholarship based. So it didn't cost me a thing, but it was 6 hours a week in class with a host of other students. Some of them right there with me with essentially no coding experience whatsoever. Others that had already built their own apps, on and knew, was already like ahead of the game. But to say that, uh, you know, it was easy, that would be a complete lie. Like it was one of the most challenging things that I've ever done. Like there was imposter syndrome. I felt at times I was just beating my head against the wall. I thought I was completely out of my element. I wanted to quit a couple times. There was one night I came home and I was like, I think I'm gonna have to quit. This is just a lot more than I even expected. And but I just kept showing up, and
Mm-hmm.
that was really the secret sauce that allowed me to kind of persevere. And eventually, what I found was, I had this big idea, but I hadn't really organized it yet and formalized it. So, in the coding boot camp of Code Labs, the first thing I really started working towards was like, okay, we got to start building it. So, we got everything set up and we started building the landing page. And so I coded in the landing page. I got my background, I got my login button, I got everything. And I was like, great, this looks awesome. I've got the first page done. And then it's like, okay, what's next? And then crickets. Like, well, what is next? And so I literally had to take a monumental step backwards and say, okay, what is it that I'm trying to build and how does it work? And so I had to go, instead of coding, I had to go back and learn design. Okay, I've got a logo and that's it. And I don't really have a color scheme and I need to figure out what this app looks like, what buttons and what views and pages. And so using Figma and developing these wireframes for both desktop and mobile. I mean, a significant portion of the first half of Code Labs for me was this, uh, really a design centered, uh, you know, focus, more so than just building and learning the front end. I was learning the front end, watching all the coursework, but the work I was actually doing was more design based. And when I got into the back end, excuse me, I really had a lot of that, those wireframes and everything kind of to a good spot, so where we really started building the API in the back, and that's where the coding really started taking more of a lead role,
Mm-hmm.
and then it started coming alive, and that was really cool to see, being able to send requests using Postman and uh, trip requests and approvals, and what a profile page looks like, and uh, but definitely it was a challenge. I had no clue, and I think that was one of the greatest uh, benefits I had, was because I was going into something I had no clue about. So I was so naive. That was actually a virtue. Because had I known how hard this would be, like from the get go, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
that I would have went down this path. I might
Mm-hmm.
have chose something easier, like maybe being a banker or something. I don't know, or just keep
Mm-hmm.
being a chemist. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was one of the best things I could have done, to help push this business forward, and uh, taught me an incredible amount about software development, and gave me an enormous amount of respect for
Mm-hmm.
developers, and
Yeah.
the problem solving skills that they're required to have on a day-to-day basis is just really
Mm-hmm.
impressive.
So would you say that your knowledge in coding has made you be a better founder, and do you think that more founders should learn how to code, at least to some level, at least a high level?
Yeah, I think you know there's there's definitely a benefit to what I did. It's not the easiest path for people, obviously, but I think you have to experience, how your product is built, as as intimately as you possibly can. At least until you find that spot where you're at in your company, or your vision, where okay, now it's time to bring in the professionals, or but I think you're doing yourself an incredible service by taking the time to understand how your product is built, uh, because ultimately you're going to be able to serve your customers better, uh, the people that find value in your product. And so from my perspective, it was a necessary challenge for me, because the alternative was coughing up tens of thousands of dollars, and at the end of it not really
Mm-hmm.
knowing how it was built, uh, but knowing, you know what the code looks like, what the code base is, set up as, and how it's all functioning together, and uh, is a value that really allows me to more confidently work with developers, in the future, and currently, and so it just kind of increases my communication skills in terms of speaking on a technical level. But I also think that depending on what your product is, you know, if you're building a tech company that's software based like mine, maybe you shouldn't necessarily jump right into the software development side and learning all these coding languages, but maybe design is more of a pathway that is something that you should get more involved in or understand more about, because that's one of the things that I learned. It's like you can have the best code base in the world, but if you don't have the design to go with it, those things are married together, and
Mm-hmm.
design and software, you can't have one without the other. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so, at least for what I'm doing, a social network that requires a user interface with user experience, and but finding some facet of your business to entrench yourself in, whether it's software development, design, or even project management, being able to manage, uh, multiple things at once, that are time based. Whether it's using things like Jira, and scheduling sprints, and project management is a critical skill, with regards to any type of tech startup. So
Yeah.
I'd say you have to find some way to get your hands on what it is that you're
Mm-hmm.
building, or else you're not gonna appreciate it enough, and therefore you're not as likely to stick it out
Yeah.
as long, with those
Yeah.
hard, difficult
Yeah.
rides. So
Yeah, it's so tough for people that are just users of software and they don't know much about the like the development life cycle and anything like that. It's so hard for them to
Yeah.
realize what goes into this, and you just touched on that in such a good way. Realizing, like, talking about you realizing there's design, then you have to build the API, you have to build the front end, you have to do all these things. And there's usually a good order to do these things in. Like you said, there's I'm kind of fumbling here, but like you said, you did your design first, right? And you did all the Figma stuff and laid out your pages and all that kind of stuff, and then you built your API. I think that's a good order to go in, because when you have those pages laid out, it can help you formulate your API so that you can send the right data where it needs to be, right? So let's talk about your role then inside of Coangler at the moment. How much development have you done? How much design? Like tell us where your hands have been on the Coangler app, because I know German. I work with German, who has developed, I would say, probably the majority of the app. So tell me what your role and where your hands have been inside of the Coangler app.
yeah, yeah. So 10 months of uh, code labs, and like I said, just starting with the design, and really the first line of code was me on the landing page, getting set up, uh, and building that. And then like I said, we had to take a step back and work on design. And then when we got into the back end portion where we were building the API, that's when really I started taking it was really almost a 50-50 split between German helping me, my instructor for Code Labs, uh, and then me working in Ruby on Rails, and building routes and endpoints, and so I spent a good portion of that spring semester of that class really, you know, I enjoyed the Ruby language too. It was a refreshing change from TypeScript and JavaScript. So I felt like things were clicking a little bit better. And then towards the last quarter of Code Labs, uh, it came time for the client side, and so I really started to start tying things in from the UI, and you know building things like the profile, and the different views on a profile with different tabs, and uh, so it was definitely you know several lines of code in the app that are mine, and but also like I was under the supervision. I was a student, so it was proofread, and made sure that it worked. But there were times where some of the most rewarding times is when I was in class, and a lot of the other students were working on capstone projects with partnering employers for the program. And because I was on this unique pathway where I've got a vision for an app, I was left to kind of work individually with some of the code coaches during that period. And
Yeah.
uh, my lead developer now, and the instructor, German. Sorry, I just had a bird fly into my window. But
I heard it. I heard it.
that hurt, didn't it? Yeah, yeah. Oh. And but anyways, I talked about project management earlier, and so German would give me tasks for the week. Said, "All right, let's get X, Y, and Z done on the profile," and I'd go in off hours, and you know work on that and build that in, and come in, and it's like, "Here, German, here's what I did. It works," and it's not bugging out. So that was a really fun time for me. But that was also probably the peak, and uh, the near the end of my coding. Since since the end of Code Labs, I had been fortunate enough to receive a grant from Codify, and was able to get a project manager and a designer and a developer, and So my lead developer now is German, who was my instructor in Code Labs, and uh, he kind of took the reins from that. It was like, okay, get out of the way and let the professionals do their work, because he could do something in 5 minutes that could take me 2 hours, and a lot of times, and so uh, I kind of let them take care of that, and so my software development has been, I'm at this stage now. I'm more involved in overseeing design and wireframe approvals to QC in the staging environment, uh, and bug identification and things like that before we deploy to our production environment. So I haven't typed a line of code in the app in probably a year now. So, but I did type the most important line of code, and that was the first one. So,
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah. That's really cool. I've had the pleasure of working alongside German. So I get to hear about Coangler and the development process every once in a while. And it's just been interesting to see this come together. I want to talk about the design a little bit. So are these, so you brought on a designer. How close are the designs that you have now, which I think are fantastic? It looks awesome. How close are the designs now to the designs that you built in the very early stages?
it's definitely derivative. Getting a professional designer was a godsend, because, that's the thing about being an entrepreneur and following a path like this. Like, you have to do so many things, and
Bit of a
it
jack
is
of all
absolutely
trades.
impossible to do all of, yeah, master of none, so it's impossible to do all of those things at the professional level that most people expect. But starting with the logo, for example, I had a logo that I personally, designed, and then hired a professional artist to kind of take what was laid out that I had and like make it look pretty, and they did. And then, with regards to the layout of the app, the features, the buttons, the way it's all pieced together, uh, that was something that I did. And but when I had a professional designer come in and kind of see what my idea was, what I found is that it really helped kind of convey what it was that I wanted. They weren't necessarily starting from scratch. And so really what they did was uh, kind of overhauled the style guide. So,
Mm-hmm.
they really honed in on what are my colors, what uh, how can we make this look sleek, and I had some suggestions about, my original designs were kind of a light mode, and I suggested, to the designer, let's go dark mode on this. There could be a lot of benefits to a dark mode app. From a UI UX perspective, I was thinking about, being out in the outdoors with high sunshine, like contrast and things of that nature
Mm-hmm.
could actually make it easier to use the app, with the bright sunshine. And but the designer just did a fantastic job, and uh, reworked my logo. That was the
Mm-hmm.
first kind of bit, and at first I was like, oh gosh, they touched my logo.
Yeah.
But I really fell in love with it almost instantaneously, and excuse me, and then, just seeing the designs from that point forward with the colors and the styling, I felt like, okay, this is something that is better than I could have done on my own. So it was nice to really
Mm-hmm.
to see that. But yeah, there are definitely underlying influences of my own design in there, from just, the way the features work and the buttons and the functionality. Uh, but yeah, the pretty the pretty UI that we have right now is a result of some pretty handy design work that I was fortunate enough to be able to get.
Yeah. Coangler is full of the best anomalies. A founder that can code.
Hmm.
They started with dark mode, which personally is a preference. I'm a dark mode tried and true. I'm a
Hmm.
developer, so I'm always on dark mode.
Same.
Um, yeah, yeah. It's easier on the eyes, and before you said it, I thought that if you're outside, it's a lot easier to read dark mode
Yep.
because the text is white. Um, And so
Yeah.
I think all those decisions are just really good decisions. Another thing too is it's hard to let go, especially because you feel like this is your child, this is your idea, and when you create a logo, it's the brand of your child. Essentially, it's like your child's name, you know. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and what a lot of people don't realize is the professionals, the people that do this for a living, they do it every day and they've done it for years. Um, they know what looks pretty, and that takes some skill, right? But knowing what's pretty sometimes can be something that's natural to people. What's not natural is the science behind it all. So when it comes down to an application, UI, UX, how does the user interact? Where do we want to draw their attention? Those kind of things. That's where hiring professionals like a designer can really come in and just take a decent design, a good design to a whole new level. Being able to draw
Yep.
users' eyes to make an app simple to use is what they're really good at,
Yep.
and it looks good. And so you got a win-win
Yep.
situation there.
Yep.
And so I'm
Yep.
personally a huge fan of the designs for Coangler. I love the color scheme. Lately, I've been into
Mm-hmm.
super big, high contrast, vibrant colors. It's just been one
Mm-hmm.
of those things that I've been into, and that's what Coangler provides. I really like it a lot. So, uh, why don't we take a moment and take a look at your app? Uh, so there's a way for you to share
Yeah.
your screen. So if you share your screen,
Mm-hmm.
walk us through the app, show us what it looks like, how you can interact with the app, and stuff like that. And we'll give you a moment to get your screen shared there. And John Pierce is going to
Yep.
take over from here.
Here, I'm gonna open up a new browser window.
Yeah, make sure to hide all your sketchy tabs that you have open at the moment.
Well, I needed to open up a new browser window because my Chrome browser has my bug herd integrated in, and so
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure it looks a little bit cleaner for you guys. So
Yeah, that bug herd can be a little
yeah, let's see
pesky
here.
sometimes. Real quick, before we move on to the rest of the video, I just want to hop on here and say if you enjoy this content, to go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. We got a lot planned for this channel that I think you're going to like, so I don't think you'll regret it.
All right, so this is the landing page here. Kind of shows a little bit of the app, and then click Learn More, and brings you down. Uh, just an overall kind of how it works. Onboarding process. Have our email list so you can sign up if you just want to get a newsletter. But go to log in and
So,
yep.
what would the newsletter entail? And is that going to be a monthly thing or?
Yeah, so it's basically when we first launched the landing page, it was a way for us to kind of start uh, collecting emails to help promote the future launch of the app. Was primarily how
Mhm.
that was used. Now it's really integrated into the overall. So if you create a Coangler account, you're going to get emails from us. If you've signed up for the newsletter, you'll get those same emails that users have. So in the beginning, it was intended as a promotional activity to gain awareness and share upcoming updates, and it
Mhm.
still is that. But it's something that's almost a little redundant at this point. But 95% of the people who have signed up to the email list uh, are Coangler users too that have created their full accounts. So,
Okay.
yep, as long as you get logged in
Very cool.
here. So, this is the home page. So, here's a trip down here, another trip down here. So this is a trip that's offered in Indiana right now. So you can go bass fishing with
That is a big
this
bass.
gentleman. Yeah, and this gentleman Justin has offered multiple trips in his area in Indiana. I think this is his third trip he's posted. Um, you can see he's got his what he's planning on doing, artificial lures for largemouth. Uh, see, he's got his pin here where he's planning on going. You got trip details, the day, start time, target species, technique, name of the water body. And that's what's so cool about this app is, people are able to set their own shared cost. And he only wants $10. So, he's willing to take somebody out there, just throw in a little bit of money for gas, and he's going to call it good. So, this is a trip request right here. So, this is an individual who hasn't uploaded his profile picture or cover photo yet, which auto-populates when you create a trip request. Uh, here's an offered trip. Here's another requested trip. So this is a good example of, once you've uploaded your profile picture and cover photo. So you can see, what a profile looks like, and then it houses all of their available trips. So this gentleman has both an offered and requested trip available. Um, here's my profile right here. Um, I currently do not have any trips available, but I will be adding some shortly. Um, here's where you manage your notifications, and you can view your control panel. So you can manage offered trips versus requested trips. So whether you've completed that trip or it's expired, whether you didn't get a request, uh, you can see how here's a past trip I had where you're able to see I got 2 requests to join this trip. I actually went fishing with this gentleman, Mike Jansen. Went on a white bass trip, and you also have a dashboard. This is kind of your quick go-to place for a quick glance at available trips, your scheduled trips, your requested trips, um, and that is kind of a quick snapshot of the app. So once you have a trip confirmed, it's populated here on your calendar, so you're able to navigate to that trip through your control panel through using your calendar. One feature that I'm really excited about in the future is making this calendar essentially a repository for all of your previous trips. So almost similar to like a Facebook Memories, where you can go back and look at your previous trips and create trip reports and see how you did, and have essentially a digital ledger that you can refer back to help influence maybe some of your future decisions. Um, so here's another requested trip right here. Um, here's a trip in California that's offered. This gentleman wants $50 to go fish Pyramid Lake. We got some more trip requests. And yeah, so that is a quick snapshot of the app. If you guys have any questions or anything, I'd be happy to kind of go over that. But
So this app is already being used in states as far as California.
Mhm.
How did you go about marketing it, and how about how many states do you see being used right now?
Yeah, give me a second here, and if we're not gonna look at any more of the app, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we'll go back. I'll get into some of that. So, uh, so that trip in California, for example, was a direct result of a major uh, influencer in the fishing industry broadcasting on his social media platforms about it, making it aware to a very wide audience. Um, so I said I'm based in Springfield, Missouri, which is one of the best places to start a fishing company due to the just the vast availability of all the lakes and rivers that we have around here. So excuse me, but promoting this in the Ozarks was really how I started. I wanted to get started. I did attend some trade shows. I've attended a trade show in Louisville, Kentucky. So that trip in Indiana, you know, likely came from some type of promotion that I did out in Louisville. I've also attended trade show in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Um, so I've really tried a wide variety of marketing, with a majority of it being focused on the Ozarks region. So southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Um, and so there's a little bit of targeted ads that's a
Mm-hmm.
result of some of that user growth. Some experiments I did with targeted ads were broad. I did nationwide ads, so I did sign up people nationwide. When I first got started, I found that a really cost-effective way to kind of help get the word out and sign up new users was utilizing Facebook phishing groups. So uh, there's a couple of major phishing groups that I was able to uh, luckily get permission from the administrators to be able to post on a regular cadence. So there was a crappie fishing group with 130,000 group members. They said, go ahead, post once a week. Thanks for asking. And then I had another fishing group that was more focused for tournament anglers to find people to go fish tournaments with. About 80,000 members on that group. The administrator allowed me to post, or on a regular cadence. So a lot of that was free advertisement. Actually, all of that was.
Yeah.
And then, there were times where I'd get in my truck and I'd drive to boat dealerships. I would go to fishing resorts, down in Branson, and talk to people at different marinas and get, promotional materials put out. Um, I would call fishing guides, cold call people. And then what I found was, after doing, I went through a round of paid advertisement on Facebook. That's primarily where I'm spending most of my ad dollars, but I've spent just a little less than $600 to date on Facebook ads. It's something that, you know, it's tough. Like conversion going that route is difficult. And so I've really tried to find more savvy ways to get the word and the message out. And so I really started with a lot of content marketing. So finding ways to create short form content through videos and Instagram Reels, um, and then sharing across those Facebook groups. And so that's where I really started experimenting with what type of content it is that uh, really captures people's attention. Uh, how do I cut through the noise, uh, and then eventually with enough of that, I was able to get in touch. I started down a different path where I started reaching out to more influencers and people with large social media followings. And hey, let me tell you about what it is that I'm doing. I think you'll like it. Let's see if there's anything we can do to support each other. I was lucky enough to find a local angler here in the Ozarks that uh, fishes a lot of tournaments. He's an incredible angler, but also an incredible marketer. He's got several different sponsorships for being an amateur angler. He's not fishing the professional level, but he has 150,000 followers between all of his social media platforms. And after speaking with him, he actually shared 3 or 4 times about what it was that I was doing with Co-Angler and linked my Facebook page, and was responsible for probably close to 100 users signing up to the platform. Um, and then had my eyes on the prize. There's a major fishing. Uh, I mean, he would be on the Mount Rushmore of fishing legends, and his name is Bill Dance, and long time television host of Bill Dance Outdoors and Bill Dance Saltwater. Uh, has been in front of millions and millions of people, and taught them how to fish on Saturday mornings. And he's also got his very well known blooper reels that is probably what he's best known for, is his the comic relief that it's so nice to see, because
Yeah.
fishing, a lot of people take it too seriously, like it's meant to be fun, and he really creates that
Yeah.
element of fun. But got to meet Bill Dance a couple of times and tell him about what I was doing, and I was very fortunate to have him really want to support what it was that I was doing. And so he introduced me to his niece that from that point forward we we started working out. Okay, let's try something on social media and see what a post would do. And so about 2.5 weeks ago, they shared on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter about Coangler, and uh, we saw a flood of new users. We were signing up a new user every 6 minutes for hours after that post, and uh,
That's really cool.
and
Yeah.
from that we had trips posted, and like you saw, California, Michigan, Minnesota, Florida, Alabama, Indiana, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois. So it was, we just hit like 7 or 8 new states just with one post, and it was pretty incredible that somebody of that stature within the industry, one of the most well respected, arguably the best fisherman on the planet, that took the time to help support, somebody that's just getting started, and he didn't charge me a dime. There's a lot of people that pay big money just to get, his endorsement, and so it was really cool to be able to, do that and help get in front of his audience as well, because I think a lot of his audience is people that would be interested in using a platform like this, and that's why it reflected in our user growth. We saw 27% growth that week, and user growth since
Oh,
since
wow.
the launch of the app. So
That's really cool. Um, so with the collaboration of Bill Dance, do you want to see collaboration with things, places like Bass Pro or Cabela's down the road, or other major fishing influencers?
definitely major fishing influencers. There's several that I'm actually in talks with right now, because what I found is that is probably the one of the most highly effective ways to get the word out, to leverage other people's social media following and get their endorsement. It is, I think, it provides an element of trustworthiness. It also is very far-reaching, and it tends to convert, and it, depending on who you work with, can be extremely affordable too. Both of the influencers that I just spoke of, the local angler with 150,000 followers, you know, he just did it out of his good graces. He hasn't charged me a thing, and yeah, I'll be, compensating him down the road, uh, one way or another. And I'm taking note of these people that really take a leap of faith and try and help me out early on, and have paid it forward, and I plan to do the same thing. And uh, but yeah, that's definitely the plan, is to continue leveraging, uh, those social media influencers, and
Hmm.
as well as continuing to grow my own marketing, content marketing. And so once those people do point at me, finding ways to, really engage them on the platform. And uh, I've got a new marketing campaign that I'm doing right now. If you notice, I'm wearing a co-angler hat right here. So
Mm-hmm.
I find that, uh, instead of paying for ads on Facebook, uh, why not just go buy a box of new hats, and find ways to give those away to people? Because for one, it's a good looking hat. I mean, I really like it, and it's comfortable, it's well made, and it's professionally embroidered, and people love free stuff. And when you give somebody an opportunity to win something free, and you ship it to them, and they enjoy it, they're proud of it, they want to wear it, they want to, you know tell people about what it's about. And so that's that type of word of mouth and organic marketing, I think, is something that I'm putting a lot of stock in right now, in terms of long term vision, in terms of brand, and really a customer, or people focused company. Because I gave away 4 hats last week on social media and shipped them out, and one gentleman, didn't win the contest. He just commented with a photo of him and his son holding up this awesome photo of a big catfish, and his son was grinning from ear to ear, and he couldn't have been 5 years old. But
That's
he's like,
awesome.
man, my son would just love that hat, and he's like, you should send one for me, send one to me so I give it to my son. And I was like, you know what? I think I will. And it's, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And so I was just like,
Yep.
let's go ahead and give this kid a hat. And, people just love it. Now they're sending me pictures of them holding up their fish and their co-angler hats, and I'm using that for new marketing. And um, and it's a cool thing because hats, as long as you don't lose them while you're flying down the lake, and it blows off your head. Which, by the way, they float. I know from experience. I did have to recover my floating hat from a lake not too long ago, and
Yeah.
but that's a really good piece of just a way for me to show my appreciation to people that want to support the platform, as well as a smart way to spend your marketing dollars as well.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned about the influencers, I kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit too, which you were talking about
Mm-hmm.
using those influencers in a way that it's been you've had a higher return on that than say something like Facebook ads or something like that, because
Yep.
3-4 years ago Facebook ads pretty much ran the marketing game, like that was the best way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing more often nowadays is Facebook groups, like you were saying. I've heard that multiple times actually from a few different founders.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Facebook groups are a really good place, especially in the early stages, to get, if you do beta testing, to get beta test users and stuff like that. And one term that I heard from a specific founder was borrowed authority. And that's kind of what I thought you were kind of touching on when you were talking about that. When you collab with these influencers and stuff like that, you're essentially borrowing their authority. They have a huge influence. They have a huge authority with their target market, with their audience, right? And when you collab with them, you're borrowing that authority because they're essentially saying, hey, check this out. And all of their audience trusts them. And so it's an interesting thing that we're seeing nowadays with the rise of all these influencers and stuff like that. I know when I was fishing, I watched a ton of fishing YouTube channels, just watching buddies go out and fish. And then me and my buddies would go out and fish and talk about doing a YouTube channel or something like that, and these guys have huge audiences, and something like this is such an interesting thing to a lot of those type of influencers that share a similar audience to you. So I think that that's probably one of the best moves right there. But when it comes to doing these collabs, how do you go about gaining, I guess, access or getting into these collabs? And you mentioned Bill Dance didn't charge you a dime. Was there anything, you said he did it out of his good graces. Is there anything that you provide for these influencers to maybe sweeten the deal or give them more of an incentive to actually want to take a look at your app and promote it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is challenging, especially at the stage that I'm at, not having, the social media influence really. We're approaching 600 followers on our Facebook page, versus when you're talking to somebody with 2 million followers. It's like, recognizing that there's not really much I can do at this stage to help you. And it's really one-sided. So what I'm asking for is an agreement that what I'm doing is meaningful and helps, people at large and agree with the mission. And so then it's up to them as to whether or not they want to support that. So I'll use Bill Dance as an example. I was lucky enough to meet him. I've met Bill Dance 3 times. The first time was at Bass Pro's 50th anniversary fishing fair here in Springfield, and I was just a fan. I seen him over there, and I was like, "Holy cow, there's Bill Dance!" And I walked over and I got in line with my Bass Pro hat, and I just got a signature on my hat. I didn't ask him. I didn't. Co-angler wasn't even beginning to be developed yet at that point in time. I wasn't even a Code Lab student yet. Um, And so I had him sign my hat, and I was just so impressed by how long it took him to just write a signature out because he wrote it so legibly and took his time with that Sharpie on the bill of my hat. And I was like, there's somebody, because I had scribbles and a lot of different other places where anglers are just like, wah, but uh, so I could tell right then that he was a man of character that really appreciated, people on an individual level. And that was, it was probably a year and a half later. I was attending the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Springfield, which, you've got people present there like Johnny Morris, the founder of Bass Pro, Bill Dance, some of the winningest tournament anglers in history. Uh, and so, lucky for me, I had actually got into a business incubator program last year and had acquired a new business mentor who's a commissioner for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, who was a friend of Bill Dance. And so, my mentor was actually at the Hall of Fame ceremony and uh, told me that he'd introduced me to Bill Dance there at the end of the night. And so I got to sit down and listen to a couple of fishing stories from Bill. And my mentor introduced me to Bill and told him, gave him a little bit of a overview of what I was doing. And I was able to sit there and really just tell him what it was that I was building. The app wasn't live at that point in time. That was about 2 months before we deployed the app. And, Bill said, I really like what you're doing, and keep me in the loop. Let me know when it goes live. And I was like, okay, I will. And
That's
but I
awesome.
didn't have any way to contact them. And at one point in time, months later, I tried to reach out on his website with a cold email, and there's there's almost no way to cut through the noise with stuff like that.
Hmm.
But uh, so this spring, in March, I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma for the Bassmaster Classic, which has a very large expo. It's the biggest bass tournament in the world. And Bill Dance, of course, was there, and he was signing autographs again. And I got to thinking, hey, this would be a good opportunity to jog his memory. I got to sat
Hmm.
down with him for 5 minutes last fall, and
Give him a hat.
so I went and got in line. Yeah, yeah, I didn't give him a hat, but I had some rack cards. I had my app open, and
Hmm.
so I got right up there and just reintroduced myself, jogged his memory, and started showing him the app and telling him again about what it does and now that it's live. And he kind of stopped me dead in my tracks, and he turned and he looked at me and he said, "What's your goal? What are you trying to do?" And without skipping a beat, I just turned right back to him and I said, "I'm trying to make fishing more affordable, and I'm trying to make it more fun, and I'm trying to make it more accessible." And he kind of went like that, and then he turned over his shoulder and he called over his niece Leslie, uh, who is the chief operating officer for Bill Dance Outdoors. And I don't know exactly what he said to her, but her and I went back to the back of the booth and we had about a 30-minute conversation. And she said, excuse me, she said, "Uncle Billy told me to help you, so we're going to help you." And she gave me her business card, and we had a great conversation. Uh, and so I just managed that relationship. It took about 2 months from that point forward to get to where we actually did the social media post, and was really, really proud of being able to work with them. And for them to take the time to help support what it was that I was doing was you know, a really incredible gesture that I'm going to remember, for a long, long time as one of those critical milestones that really helped kind of, give me some street cred early on in the fishing community. So uh, I'll be forever indebted to Bill and Leslie for all the help that they provided with me. But in terms of a formula or a pathway to approach these influencers, there's really no rhyme or reason. The best advice I can always say is be your most true, authentic self you can, and be 100% completely honest with these people. Don't make promises you can't fulfill, and tell them exactly what it is that you're doing, and let them decide whether or not they want to be a part of it, because you're you're going to get the best results from somebody that wants to help you out of the kindness of their heart rather than somebody who feels like they're being obligated or, you know, tricked into doing something that they may not want to do. So, but
I
it's a
think,
difficult game in it. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think that what you're saying holds a lot of weight. Holding true to yourself and being honest about what you want to provide. When you're going through these times when you're talking with people like Bill Dance and networking with people at these trade shows and maybe fishing tournaments or just fishing events in general, uh, being honest about who you are and what your company or your startup is trying to accomplish, that's going to be the biggest vet of who you should work with and who you shouldn't. And that's how you're going to make the most connections and the best connections is the people that align with your vision and where you want to be. So I think that's really, I just
Yep.
wanted to kind of reiterate that a little bit just so that that was said and heard, because a lot of times people miss out on that and they have an idea of who they want to work with, and they'll stop at nothing to make sure that that happens, and that might not be the best course of action. Rather than taking a path like you're taking, where I would say, I agree with you that there's probably no hard and fast path right now to access these influencers, but what you're doing is networking and making connections with people and not pressuring them. Uh,
Yep.
Explaining who you are and where you want to go, and if they align with that, then they're going to make a decision and want to work with you. I like that a lot. I think that's awesome. I think that's great.
Yep. And it requires patience, and Bill Dance was really a connection that was almost 3 years in the making. It took several happenstance interactions, and you that's one thing in starting a company is you have to become accustomed to hearing the word no, and whether it's from an investor or an influencer or an affiliate partner, um, it's a game of patience. We kind of want to charge through and break through the brick wall like the Kool-Aid man, and but at the end of the day, like that's that's what you got to do. You kind of got to see that long pathway, that hard long road, and there's really no shortcuts. So just be ready to
Yeah,
stay poised.
it's interesting.
Absolutely. So we've talked about where the app came from. We've talked about where it is now.
Mhm.
Let's talk about where it's going in the future. What do you see? What's next for Co-Angler, as far as features or just what's coming next for
Yeah,
Co-Angler?
yeah. So really where we're at right now is we're still incredibly new, and when I launched this app, it went live towards the end of November, which to launch a fishing outdoor tech company, in almost some of the coldest times of the year, seems kind of counterintuitive. But that was actually planned to do kind of a launch in the off season to help. Uh, for one, the people that sign up and use the app, I know those are die-hard enthusiastic anglers, and two, it gave us an opportunity to manage the traffic, and learn how to improve the app on a small scale before really trying to make a harder push. And so, working out bugs, finding, those 404, pages, and being able to get those corrected in a timely manner. So then, uh, in the springtime, we could really go with a hard launch. Okay, let's try and get the word out. Let's see what people really think of this, uh, and so it's been great. We've signed up almost 800 users since the launch, and
Wow.
we've had 145 trips created on the app. Um, so you know, anytime you start building a product you know, like Co-Angler, you have to start with the typical MVP, which is the minimum viable product. What is the core value proposition? What is the core thing that I'm trying to create that differentiates myself from others, but also is understood what its intended purpose is used for? And plain and simply, that's fishing trips. So offering and requesting fishing trips. So when we launched the app, it was let's go through the stuff we have to do, get that built. So we've got our landing page, we've got our onboarding process, our login, log out, change password. Then we got our profile page. Okay, so what feature do we build in first? And that's where we started with the offer a trip. Uh, and then we built in the request a trip feature. And then we built in a commenting feature. And then we built in email notifications. And so, as it stood, like with the initial stage one, version one MVP, like there was a lot of holes, a lot of pieces of the puzzle that were still missing, but it was still a usable product. You could use it. Um, it just wasn't, you know, didn't have all the bells and whistles that a Facebook or Instagram had. And so as time goes on, we've continued to talk to users and people that have uh, been on the app as well, study their behavior, in terms of retention times, multiple logins, uh, how many times has a user returned to the app, how long do they stay on the app before they leave, and so taking in and compiling all that information has really helped us inform ourselves on what the next features should be, and so we are currently kind of developing what those are. We just got done doing our administrator dashboard, which really helps me develop the app and manage the app from an administrator standpoint to manage users and trips. Um, so from this point forward, mind you, there's a whole lot of things that I would consider minor features that need to be built in. Simple links on some pages. You click a profile photo, it goes to a profile. That happens some places, but not everywhere. But also, uh, creating some of those more social type features that allow people to use the app and interact with others on the community without necessarily confirming a trip. So let's create ways for people to create threads or forums or posts. Let's allow them to follow other anglers so that they can be and informed about what they're doing, whether it's an upcoming trip or they've created a comment or something. And then the big feature that we're planning right now is essentially the trip report feature. So we've got a lot of that stuff that takes place before you actually go fishing. And what we really need to do to tie that in to go full circle is what happens after a trip. So, okay, now two anglers have matched. They've went on their fishing trip, caught fish. What can they do on co-angler now and that stage that they're at? So, and that's where the trip report comes in, where anglers will be able to post photos of their catches, provide details on the trip if they want to say how they caught them, where they caught them, uh, you know, and then that can get populated to their calendar so that they can then look back on that, maybe a year from now or on a future trip with similar conditions. Uh, and then also providing things like reviews. So anglers, right now we have, the safeguards that we have in place for people right now are basically your own due diligence. If you don't feel comfortable going and fishing with somebody that sent you a request, don't approve the request or simply deny it. Or, if there's somebody on the app that you do feel comfortable fishing with and you go fishing with them, uh, when we get the review feature built in, go ahead and leave them a review on their profile so that other anglers can then see, when they have an opportunity to fish with them, that, this is somebody that's been through this before. They're trustworthy. They've got good feedback from the community. So, working towards that self-regulating kind of system where we naturally kind of weed out the bad actors that will eventually find their way to the platform. It's just a part of life, but also including things that kind of relate to the naturally competitive nature of fishing with rankings, allowing anglers that maybe take more trips or have higher reviews to be maybe ranked in their, whether it's their water body or their geographic region, their state, or even the country or the globe. Having a co-angler rank, I think, is something that will really help people, strive to increase their level of professionalism, as well as, encourage them to get in the outdoors and take people out fishing and go have a good time, and, practice things like, uh, punctuality and, uh, proper fishing etiquette, and, some of those things that kind of go unnoticed a lot of times when you think about fishing, but, showing up to the boat ramp on time, and, respecting the other anglers' equipment and opinions and viewpoints, uh, and really that's what it comes down to, is it's all about respect, and the people that use the platform with, a healthy dose of respect get rewarded for it, and the people that are disrespectful, hopefully quickly get weeded out and, removed. And uh, but yeah, so there's kind of a list of features. We also have plans to, hire some interns here in the next month or two. I've got a couple of prospects that really eager to jump on and start, uh, developing and kind of building their portfolio. And so it's a good opportunity to give students, some real world experience working for a live application, as well as, it gives me an opportunity to, continue to, support the growth of, junior software developers, as well as, continue to contribute to the growth and development of the app, with new features. So, but yeah, that's kind of the roadmap that we're on right now.
Okay, that's really cool.
Mhm.
So ideally, where would you like to see co-angler 5 years from
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, so that's a tough question. It really is. And, I don't know where co-angler is going to be 5 days from now. Hopefully we're still fishing. But to answer this honestly, like, I want co-angler to, when somebody thinks about fishing, I want their next thought to be co-angler. Did you really go fishing if you didn't post that trip on co-angler? Or if you didn't create that trip report, did you even really go fishing? Did it really happen? I mean, I didn't see it on co-angler, so you must not have went. So that might sound a little
Yeah.
ridiculous, but I mean, I feel like, there's so many people throughout the world that fish. It is the second most outdoor engaged in activity next to walking and jogging. Just in the United States, uh, 55, 60 million people fish at least twice a year, just in the United States. Um, and then when you consider the world, I mean, it is just enormous, the amount of people that engage in this hobby for sport and recreation. And so, I know that what I'm creating right now is a resource and a tool that really will help people get in the outdoors. There's so many benefits to, between, solving problems that are globally affecting, all of humankind, like, whether it's loneliness or, lack of money. I feel like, money is one of the biggest barriers of entry to so many different things in this world. And, a tool like co-angler that allows people to, heck, I mean, if you bought a boat at Bass Pro right now, and, they got an ad going like, hey, $5 a day, you can own a new tracker boat. Well, you go book a trip on co-angler and post a trip for $25. You just paid for your boat for the next 5 days. And so being able to offset those costs, I think is something that's going to be really attractive to people. But also, it just takes time to get the word out. And so, uh, what I look forward to 5 years from now is I'm going to have 5 more years of, expansion of word of mouth, of more people becoming aware of it. They can't use it if they don't know about it. And that's the biggest challenge with starting anything new in any industry out there is, you know there's no shortcuts. I've had people that have mentored me in the past, and have told me start small. And like with something like this, you're tempted with the World Wide Web and applications like scalability. It's like, you got to start small. Well, that's great advice, but I don't care who you are. Everything you do starts small. Everything.
Yeah.
Name one thing that didn't start small. Everything has to start small.
Yeah.
And yeah, they might grow quickly, but you still start small. So, but that's my ultimate goals. Especially there's a lot more to do outdoors than just fishing as well. And I also enjoy hunting a lot. I enjoy kayaking. I enjoy golfing, and I think that what I'm doing is basically setting the precedent for the Co family of products, which is, co-hiker, co-hunter, and other product families that basically mirror kind of the same process that, uh, you know, allow people to connect and do things together in the outdoors using and leveraging this shared experience model, which, quite frankly, it hasn't even really become a thing yet. Like it's still pretty new, but we know that this is coming, and as people become more socially connected, uh, and that's my ultimate goal is leverage our technology and our phones to you know use it and then put it down and then go do something and really socially connect with people in person out in the real world. And that's the ultimate goal, and we've already accomplished that to some degree, not to the scale that my goals are, but there's already been examples of people connecting and going on fishing trips, and it's like, well, I mean, that worked. And how do you put a price tag on something like that? Introducing two people that potentially have a lifelong friendship now, or at least a lifelong memory. So,
Yeah.
You are in a market that I would say is a little untapped at the moment. There's not a lot of software in the outdoor industry. We've seen some big ones kind of recently pop up, like Onyx Hunt. That's sponsored, or I don't know, sponsored is the right word, but endorsed by Steve Ranella, one of the most world-renowned hunters. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, there's not a lot of outdoor software out there that is, in my opinion, to the caliber of CoAngler. CoAngler is a high-quality app. The designs look good. The features are great. You're already seeing benefits of it with, you said, 800 users, right? Just even with the, I guess, relatively small amount of users, I would say it's a decent amount. I would say it's a decent amount of users. I think it's a good amount of users. But relative to something like Onyx Hunt being promoted by those big guys like Joe Rogan and Onyx Hunt, relative to that, you're still seeing returns, and you're still seeing it benefit and help people out, like you said, with lifelong friends and lifelong memories. But you are in this market that has a need for good quality software. So I definitely think that your goal for wanting to be thought of as soon as someone thinks about fishing, like, did you even go fishing if you didn't post it on CoAngler? I think those are definitely attainable. Ever since I've heard about CoAngler, when I think about fishing, I think of CoAngler. But I'm also a software guy, so I think of software when I think of most things. Yeah. But yeah, it's super interesting what you've been able to accomplish in the time that you've been able to accomplish it in. And I think that your direction and your goals are super telling of your character.
Super awesome.
Yeah, super awesome. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. One thing that you mentioned is a little buzzword, some startup buzzwords. I forget the exact one you mentioned earlier, but I'm going to mention one now. Monetization. I said the M word. What are your plans, or do you have plans to monetize this app in any way? And what kind of thoughts do you have about monetization? Because that's a big startup thing, right? When you go through startup incubators and you read startup articles, almost every article is like monetize as soon as possible. So what are what are, if any, plans to monetize with Coing?
Yeah, so my monetization strategy from the very beginning has been uh, taking into context of what it is that I'm building. And so, being that Co-Angler is brand new, on the day we deployed the app back in November, uh, it was 100% free. The app is still 100% free today, but I knew that I couldn't charge people to use the app because, for one, there's no trips. It's just a big empty app. So somebody had to post a trip. So all payments are handled in person. So we're not taking a commission or a platform fee. Those anglers are expected to complete that transaction, on their own. Uh, my strategy and plan was to get to the 1,000 user mark and reward everybody that signs up with a lifetime membership. Okay, here's an incentive to sign up early, secure your account, and not have to pay for the app unless you decide to get some type of premium feature later on down the road. But you are going to be able to secure a lifetime membership. Uh, and why did I pick 1,000 users? Because I had to pick a number. Basically, it's arbitrary. But I felt like getting to that mark, definitely getting over the 100 trips threshold, allows me to at least have the app populated to a degree with trips, where then I can begin to experiment with different uh, revenue strategies and streams of, what is it that people prefer? Would they rather have a subscription membership? Would they rather just pay a one-time platform fee? Uh, Fishing is a seasonal sport. Are annual subscriptions even something that people would want, or do they want something more like a 3 month or a 1 month or maybe even a 1 week subscription? So we're approaching that time period now where we're going to start actually turning on some of those monetization uh, strategies and really letting the people kind of tell us what they prefer that use the app. But there's also an ad revenue model as user growth increases. There's the potential to reduce the price for the users on the app, but also you know allow those advertisers to sell product through the app and in the marketplace. So at this time, yeah, we've got really three main approaches that we're planning on approaching and implementing, likely simultaneously, and then seeing which one kind of overtakes the other, with ad revenue kind of being on the back shelf.
Yeah, when that user base gets pretty big, I think that tartar sauce is probably the best way to go about it.
I tell you, it is a hit. Whenever I have that tartar sauce at a fish fry, people are just like, "Who made this tartar sauce?" That's good.
But yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, so this app is in its very early stages. So why don't you tell us the best way to connect with this app, the best way to connect with you, and so that people that are listening can sign up, can connect with you if they want to connect with you about maybe potential collabs or anything like that. What's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah. So the easiest way to sign up to the app is simply to go to coangler.com, COANGLER.com. And then the easiest way to get a hold of me is just send me an email, John, JOHN, at coangler.com. And we also have some social media channels, so at co.angler on Instagram and co-angler on Facebook. We also got co-angler on LinkedIn too, if you prefer more of a business approach. But those are the easiest ways to get involved. We're very responsive to social media messages and emails, and so you get a hold of us as long as I'm not out fishing and have no cell phone reception. We'll be in touch with you shortly. So
Awesome. Well, sweet. Well, I think that wraps up the first episode of Startup Chronicles. John, it was a pleasure to have you. This has been awesome. So everybody go sign up for Co-Angler and request a fishing trip. And just so that all of our Code Lab students that are watching, this is Co-Angler, not Co-Angular. So we learned the Angular framework, and I think a lot of the time Co-Angler turns into Co-Angular real quick. But anyways, I think that was a great episode. John, thank you for coming on. It was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Nolan. Thank you, John. Really happy to be here on your first episode, and best of luck. I look forward to following along and kind of seeing some of your future interviews, and I really like the format, and this type of content is something that I think, from software developers to digital creators to entrepreneurs and anybody in the tech field, like I think you're really providing a useful value for people. So best of luck to you guys, and maybe a year from now or something I can come on again and we'll have kind of a recap of what's happened in the last year.
Bring Bill Dance on.
Yeah. Well, we'll do the next one from the boat. How's that sound?
Yeah, there we go. That sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Startup Chronicles. We hope you enjoyed, and if you want to see more from Noble Creative, please like and subscribe.